If you have not seen one of RazoRock's CNC razors before, I'll put a little, see, and now I'm running out of soap. Welcome to my channel, shavers and shavettes. I hope you're all well. Gonna have a little bit of a mixed bag today, talking about a new-ish razor and whatever random thoughts pop into my mind. I haven't planned it out. Before that, as always though, with the gear, today's brush is a reknotted Stag handle. This one is a B753, I think. I'll have to double check that. This is one of, if not my very first attempts at reknotting a handle, so you can see little squeeze out of the epoxy that I used with this silver tip knot. Still works really nice. Very nice brush. And yes, B753. Really like that brush. The soap for today, going with RazoRock's What the Puck. This is the lime version. Very nice, inexpensive hard soap, which, as you know, I prefer. And the razor, which will be kind of the main topic of discussion, is the new, or one of the new variants of the BBS, also by RazoRock. I think you can probably see there, this is the open comb version. I have used this one pretty much for a week and a couple of days, so I think I got a pretty good grasp of what's going on with it, but we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll go ahead and get a little splash of water, and let's do it. All right. So if you haven't seen before, I don't do a whole lot of pre-shave type of activity, just a splash of water and get a very dry brush. We'll switch on Lather cam here. You can take a look. There's really nothing coming out of that. If that's not going to get completely washed out, you can see my puck of soap is not wet at all. I don't pre-soak. I don't really find the need for it. But here we go. One, I don't know if downside is quite the right word. That might be a little extreme. But one thing to think about with the What the Puck soaps, as well as any soap in general, is how big, how much diameter you're working with on the top. A smaller diameter puck, you're going to need to spend more time loading the brush. A larger diameter puck, you're going to need to use less time. There's just no way to get around that. I haven't seen it quite as prevalent in a while, but it kind of seems to come and go that on the forums, a soap's worthiness, a soap's quality, is very often determined by how long it takes to load a brush. And that's, you can't determine anything with that. There's way too many variables. What size of brush are you working with? What's the area of soap that you're working with? Even your water quality is going to have an impact on how long you load the brush. For me, it takes as long as it takes. I really don't care if I spend 30 seconds or 2 minutes. It's all about the performance of the shave. I don't even pay attention to how long it takes to load my brush. And I do load, I've said before, I think a little bit heavy. That is based on videos I watch or just reading information on the forums. I definitely don't consider a soap to be bad quality if it takes more than 30 seconds or more than 5 swirls of the brush to load. That's completely independent of a soap's quality. But I think I'm looking good at this point. I'll give you a little look there. That's, yeah, I think a nice loaded brush. So here we go. Still have a little bit of water on the face, but I'm just kind of smearing it around right now. This is way too little water to be a good, effective lather. I'm going to slowly add the water as I build the lather directly onto my face. That's why it's called face lathering. And something that I know I occasionally struggle with, and again, based on watching videos, reading forums, it seems like a lot of people struggle with as well, is recognizing at what point are you going to have a bad experience. At what point do you need to stop what you're doing and either restart or change? And where I struggle with that is this initial lather, because since there are so many variables, the brush itself, the soap, my water quality is probably the most consistent of any of my variables, but there will be a lot of times where I feel like I've got a good load onto the brush. And as I'm building, I will realize, ooh, this isn't going to be quite enough. I'm not going to be able to get 3 passes, which is what I like to do. Not that it's better by any means. It's just what I like to do. But then I don't stop, take the brush back to the soap and continue loading. The same can be said about a lot of different steps in shaving, like the blade. I think I have about 2 or 3 shaves on this blade right now. If I take my first couple strokes and it doesn't feel right, stop. Quit what you're doing right then and there. Grab a new blade, switch it out. There is no reason to put yourself through a poor shave just so that you can get done and say, boy, that was terrible. This blade only lasts 2 or 3 shaves. Change it out. All right, so I think I'm looking good here as far as getting my lather built. The brush is now looking about like that. And I think I'm probably good for a full 3-pass shave. So let's start. Now well, let me back up a little bit. RazoRock released 3 new base plates for the BBS. Get started so we don't run all day long with this video. They've got the A, the AS, and the open comb, the OC. Now, if you've been to the channel before, you are probably aware that I am a fan of the BBS. So I was pretty excited to get these new base plates when I saw that they were available. I've used each one at least once, and they are very similar. If you've used the BBS before, the Classic, I think is what they're calling it, you will probably have a very similar, if not the same, reaction to any of the new base plates. There's just enough difference to where you can tell, yeah, it's a different base plate. It doesn't turn it into a whole new razor. Now, I like open combs not because they're aggressive. Whether it's a closed safety bar or an open comb like this one, that has nothing to do with how aggressive a razor is. That's all down to do with the angles. So even though this is listed as being a little more aggressive, if I'm remembering correctly on the website, it's not day and night. The reason I like open combs is it feels anyway that not scraping off the full layer of lather, it leaves a little more lubrication on the skin when the blade actually passes over. And I like that. There we go. Finish off this first pass. And I'll call that good. It does, the open comb, it does feel like there's a little more blade sensation. I can feel the difference between the comb and the blade. A little more obvious than the classic or the standard. Probably should have double checked what they're calling it, but I'll probably put a little note on the screen at some point confirming what it is. Of the three choices, if you're wanting something that feels a little more aggressive than the standard, I'd say the AS is definitely your best bet. That one has a very visible, different angle from the original. But it is still very nice. That's another term that I think there's no real set standard. What is an aggressive razor? What exactly does that mean? So when I say it's more aggressive, I can feel the blade a little more. There's a distinct point of pressure between the comb in this case, or the safety bar in the other options, and the blade itself. There's a little more blade actually exposed, making it more aggressive. It's still very gentle. All four options now of the BBS, I think, are very gentle. They do have a little different angle than any other razor that I've used anyway, although the angle between the four base plates is pretty much the same. I haven't compared video to take a look at where I'm holding it from one to the next, but I feel like it's very similar. And for the price, whether you're buying a new razor outright or if you just need to add the base plates to your collection, the price is what it is. $70 or so for the razor. That's not cheap. And I understand that, because that's not cheap for me either. However, if we're talking value, I mean, even for a stainless steel CNC'd razor, probably the next closest price point is still 3 times as expensive. They don't put the hand-polished mirrored finish on all their pieces, which is understandable at that price point. They make a good case as well that the geometry has to be exactly right, that going in even with something as gentle as a hand polish could throw that off. So I'm okay with the way they look. I'm okay with the finish. You'll have to decide for yourself. If you've not seen one of RazoRock's CNC razors before, I'll put a little, oh, see, and now I'm running out of soap. And we will just go ahead and pause it right here. This is Editing Andy. After watching the video back, going through the edits, something I failed to mention earlier and will not mention for the rest of the video, and the reason why my lather went poof all of a sudden, is that this brush has not been cleaned properly in quite a long time. I'm very familiar with what the brush can do, and I'm very familiar with what the soap can do. This is definitely out of sorts, which for me, anytime a brush isn't performing with a soap that I know how it should perform, that tells me I need to clean my brush. I'll make a video on that another time if anybody's interested, but let's get back to it. I should have realized that. My second pass, I thought it was looking a little thin, but I thought to myself, now I'll be okay. Don't want to make the video go any longer than it needs to. So I'm just going to grab a little more soap here. Just loaded enough till I can get my one final pass. think my brush maybe had just a little more water than it was able to use with the soap that I loaded. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the soap. It means I didn't do my job right. There we go. Give a touch more water. In general, the harder your water is, the more soap you're going to have to load. It's just like any other soap or detergent. If you have hard water, you know that you're using a lot more soap for everything compared to somebody who has very soft water. And so let's get that little bit of lather out of the brush. There we go. And this step doesn't do anything special. It's just, I like to do it. Especially if I'm trying a new razor. As I'm putting this little coat of lather onto my face using my fingertips, I can feel through and determine if I missed any spots, if there's any place that I need to pay more attention to with my final pass. I can always come back to touch up later, of course, but if I know what I'm working with right away, I generally don't need to come back for any sort of a final touch-up pass. So rinse that. Dry hands. This is another reason why I love using microfiber. These things can absorb all kinds of water, so I don't want to have wet, slippery fingers throughout my shave. So I can easily reach down and very quickly dry up my fingers so that my razor's not slipping all over the place. And there we go. Get into that final pass on my neck. And I think this is pretty common from reading posts and watching videos, but the whiskers on my neck grow extremely flat to the surface of my skin. And for the most part, almost going straight to the center out. So to truly get against the grain is tricky, to say the least. Between the flat angle and just, I'd have to come across like this. It doesn't work really easy. So I try to come at multiple different angles, give it a little bit of a spin as I go. And that works out really nice for me. There we go. Even after I make a pass with my razor, this soap still leaves a really nice, very slick film. This obviously isn't the only soap that does that, but I think in general, hard soaps do a better job at that than softer soaps. Soft soaps on my face tend to get sticky after the lather has been moved from the razor after passing over. And again, that's not an indication that it's a poor soap. It's just the chemistry of the soap. Usually, just a little water on the fingertips, run it across that spot, brings the slickness right back up. There we go, almost done. And we'll just try to go as against the grain as I can on the upper lip here. See, it's hard to pull my skin taut because it's still so slippery. So I'll come in and dry off my fingers. It's looking good, last little bit. There we go. One last little feel if there's anything left over that I want to grab. I think that's feeling okay. Last little touch-up pass right under the nostrils. All right. And that's feeling good. I'll go ahead and get a little rinse. And looking good. At this point, if I still notice that I missed a little spot, this is where I've got just that last little bit of lather plopped onto my brush. If I need to dip my fingers in it, come back to catch anything, still have plenty of lather to catch any last little bits that might need attention. But I think it's looking all right for today. Excellent. As always, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me here today. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.